In September 1977, readers of the science and technology magazine Popular Mechanics would have found a captivating illustration on that month's front cover. Flying campers. Go where you've never been before. It was a promise of freedom like no other. A fitted kitchen for cooking up the fresh fish little Timmy is catching out on deck, a TV for evening entertainment, a fully furnished home in the sky that could take you and the family anywhere and everywhere. It's fair to say, though, that popular science magazines were known for presenting fanciful and outlandish technologies that had little chance of becoming anything close to reality. But this flying recreational vehicle was 100% real, and little did I know when I started researching this project that I'd discover not only the fascinating history of these unique heli-homes, but also track down the man who made them. This is the story of the heli-home. Before we dive further into the fascinating history of the heli-home, however, I wanted to tell you that today's video is sponsored by Blinkist. And Blinkist is an app that might just completely change the way that you read and discover books. At least it certainly has for me. Blinkist is a huge curated library of non-fiction books from history and politics to science, philosophy, and a whole lot more. The team pull out the key takeaways and highlights from various works, condense them into short, beautifully narrated 15-minute blinks, as they call it, and then you can either listen to or read them. There are so many books that I have discovered and rediscovered in the last year of using Blinkist. Perfect example being Chernobyl, the history of a nuclear disaster, one of my favourite books and summarised perfectly on Blinkist. If you want to learn and understand the context and the important points of the story, they also have these beautiful custom covers for the book that just look amazing in the app. Another one, The Box. I made a video all about the history of jerry cans. You may have seen it. Well, up next is a fascinating deep dive into the history of the shipping container. And if you want a preview into what I'll be discussing, the book that inspired me is on Blinkist. Another great suggestion that popped up in my feed thanks to the app. I could go on like this all day, but honestly, if you like discovering subjects and ideas, learning and reading and doing it in a quick, fun way, well, Blinkist might just be for you. Try it for yourself. You can click the link in my description to start your 7-day free trial of Blinkist, and you get 25% off a premium membership. I recommend it. Anyway, thank you, Blinkist, and let's get back to the heli-home.
Every spring it comes, that urge to roam. And spring is waiting for you right now at your Winnebago dealer's 73 Spring Rally.
Winnebago Spring Rally. Winnebago.
The Winnebago company was the brainchild of John Hanson, who had pioneered the efficient assembly of these boxy, coach-built homes on wheels. By 1961, Winnebago controlled almost 70% of the RV market, soon becoming the ubiquitous generic brand name of the recreational vehicle. When you think RV, you think Winnebago. Except that was a 1986 Fleetwood Bounder. Inside, the various Winnebago models were all the creature comforts a 1970s traveller could want. A fully functioning stovetop, comfortable seating and beds for all the family, lots of smooth veneer wood panelling, unnervingly visible toilets, and just so much shag carpeting. Even with the oil crisis and the shaky economy of the late 1970s, RVs were still incredibly popular around the United States, and the Winnebago company was looking for something as a promotional tool and product that could draw customers into their lots and also be marketed at more high-paying vacationers looking for something above and beyond your typical recreational vehicle. Something special, something more adventurous, something like a decommissioned US military helicopter. It just so happened that by the 1970s, the US Army was in the process of selling off many of its former fleet of Sikorsky S-58 or Choctaw helicopters. Robust, reliable and simple compared to other helicopters of the time, they had seen extensive service, especially with the US Marines in Vietnam, where they had acted as transport, utility and even early helicopter gunships, outfitted with machine gun positions and rocket pods. They were also surprisingly spacious for their size. The aircraft's radial engine, one of the things that made them so reliable and simple to maintain, also meant the cockpit was located above the main cabin. This odd-looking shape made them less aerodynamic, but provided ample room in the passenger cabin, giving her the ability to carry 12 to 16 occupants, or 8 stretchers when used for medical evacuations. It's also probably one of the reasons that the S-58 was chosen as Marine One, outfitted with a spacious and comfortable interior benefiting the transportation of the President of the United States. But just how do you turn a decommissioned, no-frills military helicopter designed with comfort as the final thought into a lavish flying RV fit with all the comforts of home?
Hello.
Is that Fred?
Hey, how are you?
This is Fred Clark, and while the story of the HeliHome is often told today as an invention of Winnebago, it was in fact Fred and his company Orlando Helicopter Airways who created the initial idea of the flying campervan in the 1970s. After a lot of research and emailing, I amazingly found Fred, and I was able to give him a call at his home in Florida. To quote Winnebago's sales brochure, the HeliHome is inspected down to the last rivet and wire and remanufactured by Orlando Helicopter Airways Incorporated, one of the nation's oldest and most established helicopter operations and rebuilding firms.
That's basically what we did. We buy surplus military S-55 and S-58 helicopters. We operate them, we build them, rebuild them, used them for various jobs, agricultural, heavy lift, flying crane, that type of thing. Sikorsky was about the only thing I could think of that would ever work. You could have a kitchen and a bathroom and all that inside like a regular camper. It takes a pretty good sized helicopter to be able to get all that inside and really make a camper configuration out of it.
Fred Clark had flown as a pilot with the US Navy, and after leaving had established Orlando Helicopter Airways in 1964. Fred and his team had created the first HeliHome independently, at that point called the Heli-Camper, before being noticed by Winnebago's marketing team.
Yes, that's about the way it was. We developed the first one, and we had a little publicity. They saw it, and then they wanted to work with us, and they designed the interior and provided the material for the interior and designed the paint job and all that sort.
As such, rather than Winnebago creating the HeliHome, they would in fact be the first buyer of a HeliHome, commissioning from Fred a smaller A55 Heli-Camper first, now renamed the HeliHome, and later the model N62254 that would go on to feature in the various promotional materials sold under Winnebago's upmarket Itasca division.
We had first the S55 camper, and then we had the S58 camper. And I think you got a copy of the S58 camper on the front page of Popular Mechanics magazine.
The aforementioned Popular Mechanics article from 1977 described their test model in great detail, and the reality was not far from the fanciful illustration depicted on the magazine's front cover. The Sikorsky's large main cabin had been transformed into a space not unlike that of a traditional RV, with full carpeting throughout and soundproofing to insulate the interior living space. A seating area with tables could be transformed into bunks that could sleep up to 4. A small galley contained enough space for a 2-burner electric range and a 4 cubic feet refrigerator. Hot and cold air was provided by way of a 6,000 BTU air conditioning unit and a 40,000 BTU furnace, all of which ran off an auxiliary 3,500 watt generator. A water heater could provide hot water to both the galley and the small bathroom located aft, where a chemical toilet and shower was installed. Other useful features included a full sound system with an AM/FM radio and cassette deck, a full colour TV and intercoms for communication between the cockpit and cabin. There was also ample storage for other items such as an inflatable raft, folding tables, an awning, or even the odd rifle. As Winnebago's own sales brochure boasted, whether equipped for recreation as a travelling field office or on-site testing laboratory, the HeliHome offers outdoor enthusiasts and business firms the speed and ease of air travel and the luxury of finely appointed facilities on the ground. All of this tied up in a neat bundle for the low price of almost $300,000, almost $1.5 million in today's money. However, the HeliHome was never truly a product that Winnebago intended to sell at any form of scale, with one magazine stating that they only succeeded in selling a single HeliHome. For Winnebago, it was primarily a promotional tool, and it succeeded in drawing visitors into dealerships and RV trade shows around the country and getting onto the front cover of various magazines. So not only was Fred kind enough to talk to me about his experience creating the HeliHome, he also sent me all of this amazing original documentation that he scanned and photocopied and dispatched from America to me in Scotland. Now, full disclosure, this has already been opened. It was actually opened by my parents because I'm currently on holiday right now. I'm actually filming this and making this video on the road. I'm in a hotel in Bavaria right now in Germany, and they kindly scanned everything, sent it over to me. I've not seen any of the stuff that's in here though, so we're opening this up together. together for the first time, which is really quite exciting. So Fred sent me this really lovely letter as well. Dear Callum, enclosed are copies or originals of what I have relative to the HeliHome. This project certainly has had a long and interesting life. We sold several of the aircraft, and most were used for transportation. However, one was used in California by a helicopter operator for camping in the high mountains. He would tell us about landing next to his favourite lake, camping and fishing. I actually talked about this, or Fred brought it up during our conversation.
We had one operator that used S-55 helicopters in his agricultural operation, and he bought a camper, and he used the camper quite extensively, actually. He would fly it up to his favorite lake up in the mountains somewhere and camp out and all that sort.
So, moving on to the actual documents themselves, this is something you guys probably recognize from the video. This is the Winnebago sales brochure. Interesting about this illustration, this actually is the helicopter that they made, but you can actually look up the entire history of this. From its construction in 1960, it served with the US military, it was with the Marines, it actually suffered combat damage according to the records that we have online. It was then transferred to Fred's company, they turned it into the HeliHome. It was then taken out of that, sold to numerous different companies again throughout the 90s and 80s, and I think the very last reference we have to this is in 2015. So there is a photo from around 2013 or 15 of this. It's been repainted and it's obviously gone through a lot of different things since then, but it's amazing the life this one airframe had, and it's probably still out there somewhere in the States. So yeah, quite amazing. This is really the thing I wanted to show you guys on camera, and I've never actually seen this in real life. This is an original sales brochure, which I think comes from after the Winnebago sales promotion ended. So this would have followed the Winnebago HeliHome when they rebranded back to the Orlando Heli-Camper. And you've got this amazing photo with the veranda deployed on the outside, set up next to, this lovely river. Absolutely gorgeous photo. And this is the original one. It's not a photocopy. Fred kindly sent this over to me. If we open it up, you've got not only interior photos, you also have illustrations as well too. The guys out camping look very close to the trees here. I would be very worried trying to take off. I'm no pilot, but anyway. Inside though, you can see photos here too. There's the refrigerator and stovetop, shower and bathroom. You can see here, I never even noticed this, one of the tables here is set up and has a colour scheme so that you can play chess or checkers on it. And this one here, I think, is set up so you can play backgammon on it. That is really interesting. I never noticed that before. And also, you can see in both of these photos, there's this little hatch here. That's the pass-through that leads to the cockpit. Remember, the cockpit's located above the main cabin, so they created this pass-through, and you can actually see the padding and the soundproofing that was put on this. This whole interior area was padded and soundproofed. Now, this illustration with these two very worried people clearly trying to tot up how much this experience is costing them. They're like, honey, is this really $300,000? You can actually tell this is the smaller version. Fred mentioned that they made two models. Now, the HeliHome that Winnebago created, they specifically used the S58, the larger version. But they sold both, and the S55 had a slightly different layout. You can tell it's the S55 because the bed was above and at the back, whereas with the S58, the toilet was located at the rear of the plane. You can see on the back here, this gives you the differences between the two different models. I actually think if I was going to buy one of these, if I had £500,000 to spend, I'd probably get the S55. Not only is it smaller, the bed is actually better. They always say that in a van. If you're living the van life, better to have a bed that is always set up, so you're not having to make your bed up every single night. A few other articles. You might have seen some of these referenced again in the video. Here, this is Professional Pilot, April 1981. So this is when they were actually on sale. This is a bit of advertising from the time, and there's some great photos in here. You might be able to spot there is the interior controls for the cockpit. Here is another great shot of the interior of the larger S58 model with the pass-through little kitchenette area as well too. You've got your radio set up there, and then looking back here, your toilets, intercom, and then there's your bunks set up as tables, but then be set up into bunks as well too. So yeah, quite amazing, quite remarkable seeing all of these things, and just shows you all of this stuff is not really available online. When you look up blogs and articles, it's there's stuff online about it, but most of the stuff I hadn't been able to see properly until I emailed Fred, essentially. So yeah, quite amazing. Thank you very much, Fred. The HeliHome was a unique and bizarre product that was sold for only a brief period of time and to a small and select audience. Rather than fading into obscurity, however, it was an idea that captured the imagination to such a degree that it is frequently shared, discussed and talked about online.
I think it just, people's imagination kind of runs wild, and they think, well, boy, that would be nice to have my own helicopter and be able to fly off into the mountains somewhere and camp out and all that sort.
And in many ways, it came closest to fulfilling the ideas of what the helicopter was originally envisioned to achieve. In an article he wrote for The Atlantic as far back as 1942, Igor Ivanovich Sikorsky, whose name would become synonymous with the aircraft he helped pioneer, presented a vision of people owning helicopters in much the same way they owned a car. Suburban commuters would take helicopters to and from work in the city, and on weekends, families could fly beyond the roads to explore wherever they liked. Equipped with floats instead of wheels, the helicopter can rise from your door and, if necessary, land in a swamp or lake, river or savanna. The vast and beautiful Canadian North Country, with its thousands of gem-like lakes, will be visited by helicopter tourists who will look upon breathless scenes never before, perhaps, seen by the eye of man.